Why were they silent? Where was the church? The theologian James Cone, our most important theologian, wrote a book, The Cross and the Lynching Tree. It was his last book, in which he looked at lynching in the South and defined it for what it was: crucifixion. The crucifixion of black bodies and black children. And he asked that question, where was the white church? Where were the white theologians? Why did they say nothing? Why could they not see the crucifixion when it was in front of them? I asked Cone, he once described the white church as the Antichrist. I asked him a few months ago, do you still describe the white church as the Antichrist? And he said, well, if you define the Antichrist as everything that Jesus came to fight against, I would have to say yes. Neoliberalism has infected the church just as it has infected the liberal elites. We speak in its language. We are devoured by its poison. We have been taught to trust in systems of power we should have long stood up and defied. The damage done by the Clintons was immense, furthered under Bush and furthered under Barack Obama. And that's why there has been complete continuity in the major structural issues as well as the imperial projects for the last 3 decades. Although I would have to say Obama's assault on civil liberties was worse. Not only giving the executive branch the right to assassinate American citizens through a misinterpretation of the 2001 Authorization to Use Military Force Act, but as you heard, the overturning of the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878, which prohibited the military from acting as a domestic police force. Section 1021 of the National Defense Authorization Act, for which I went to federal court to sue Obama, allows the military to detain, without due process, any American citizen who supports the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, or associated forces, whatever that is, and hold that citizen until, quote-unquote, the end of hostilities, which in an age of endless war is forever. In essence, to carry out acts of extraordinary rendition on the streets of American cities. And in that 2-year legal process, as it went to the Second Circuit, the appellate court, the lawyers approached the Democratic leadership in the House, because this section is renewed every year, and said all you have to do is to insert that this does not apply to U.S. citizens and we will drop the suit. But they did not, because it was written for U.S. citizens. We have undergone, as John Ralston Saul correctly says, a corporate coup d'etat in slow motion, and it's over. Anytime you give rise to a bankrupt liberalism, this is what Dostoevsky wrote about in The Idiot, or in The Underground Man, Notes from the Underground. Anytime that you create a liberal elite, whether it's in Weimar or Yugoslavia, which I covered, that mouths the words of traditional liberalism but refuses to defend or stand for any of those beliefs. You create not only an economic and a political crisis, but an existential crisis. And what happens, as Richard Rorty writes in his last book, Achieving Our Country, is that when that cabal, in this case corporate cabal, seizes power, when that corporate cabal keeps the facade of democracy, electoral politics, the Constitution, but internally has seized all of the levers of power to render the citizen impotent, then what you foster is a governmental paralysis, an inability on the part of the government to respond to the most basic rights and needs of its citizenry. That's how you get a bailout, where the people who committed financial fraud are bailed out and the victims are left to pay for it. What happens is what has happened to us. Finally, you have internally large groups of the disenfranchised who turn on a bankrupt liberal elite, as we saw in this last election. This has nothing to do, by the way, with Russia. This is just another form of ridiculous demagoguery on the part of the liberal class. Think about it. Think about what they're telling you. Really what they're saying is tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of Hillary Clinton supporters woke up, read the John Podesta emails and said, "That's it, I'm voting for Trump." Or, and I take the 7 pages written in the National Director's Intelligence Report, they watched RT and decided to vote for the Green Party. You have neoliberal Republicans who demonize Muslims, undocumented workers, and you have neoliberal Democrats who demonize Putin and the FBI director. The elites are pitting alternative facts against alternative facts and failing to confront or name the economic and ideological forces that have disemboweled the United States. And what happened, courtesy of that bankrupt liberal class, was that huge numbers of dislocated, largely white, working class Americans whose pain is real and whose betrayal is real, turned on not only those liberal elites, but the purported liberal values that they said they stood for. I watched the same thing in Yugoslavia. It's what happened in Weimar. When you create that kind of a dysfunctional system, you vomit up figures like Donald Trump.